Welcome to a true spiritual adventure story like the world has never known. Volume 2, Rise of the First World Teacher, with your host, Dr. James Yogadhi Weldon. Good day, this is Dr. Jim Weldon, Yogadhi, speaking to you from Heavenly Mountain and our wonderful community here in North Carolina. Our ongoing discussions of living an enlightened life. This is the second book, Rise of the First World Teacher. And in these last several episodes, I've been talking about the development of our community here and also sharing some of the insights that had come in the last few years. At the point that this program, it was now the 35th year since the initial founding of the Art of Living Foundation. And during that period of time, that organization had grown to a huge stature. Its programs were extremely diverse and attracted the interest and activity of really many millions of people all over the planet joining together to celebrate our common heritage, our traditions. In the last few years before this major event, the 35th anniversary called the World Culture Festival that we attended in India, my wife and I had moved into our dream community located in Boone, North Carolina, on 1,000 acres, and gradually began to work to continue to support the development of this community and help inspire people living a more enlightened life. This morning, in the last day, as I've been thinking about the segment, I actually wrote a small joke about what I was passing through. My parents used to watch some of the early comedians in the United States, and one of these comedians, probably the 1920s, 1930s, so it was a few years back. It was called Laurel and Hardy. And Laurel was constantly scratching his head, and Hardy always had the answers, but he never had the answers. And they were constantly getting into trouble. So I wrote a little poem this morning about a conversation between Laurel and Hardy if they happen to be wise. And Laurel says to Hardy, "We're in a pickle, my friend. We're on a speck of dust sailing through space about 1/3 the speed of light. We've forgotten our past. We can't keep our mind on the present moment, and we don't know our potential future truth." Laurel says to Hardy, "I think we should find a true spiritual teacher." So this is kind of a joke, but in the sense, this is quite true. If we really look at the deeper aspect of our life, life is such a huge, unbelievable mystery. We're living in such a huge, unbelievable universe. And in so many ways, we're very much kind of beginning that grander journey. And the entire purpose of these books that I've written, the first one, Living the Enlightened Life, and the second one, The Rise of the First World Teacher, is to help people understand and see that they are in a pickle. We are in a pickle. I don't know if you know what a pickle is. It's a green cucumber that's been soaked and cured. Anyway, it's a joke. It's my joke. Perhaps not the best joke, but the whole purpose of this is to help us all get out of that pickle, make our life much more purposeful, and understand how really deep and amazing this adventure is. So at this point in our life, we had been living on Heavenly Mountain. We moved here in 2012. Now it's 2017 or close to 2017. And during that time, one of my goals is to help support the potential growth of this community into what I envisioned it ultimately would be, essentially a center for higher consciousness that would remain to provide a stable source of knowledge for many years after, our life is really quite short in the scheme of things. And I've always believed, and I encourage everybody to think a little deeper on their own life and realize that really we've come here to help bring something into this world. Obviously, part of that is the qualities which we imbibe as human beings, our love, our compassion, our creativity, our insight. And we've come ultimately to join together with others in that process. Ultimately, in the scheme of things, the individual is absolutely insignificant. You know, we come and we go. And during this time here, the Art of Living Foundation moved into the largest portion of it, 660,000 square foot facility. And gradually the activities began to grow. There were two more communities, one which originally was a community for families and houses, and there was somewhere between 20, now maybe 35 families that had homes, big houses, some smaller townhouses. But there was an entire facility on the other side sitting unused, 230,000 square feet. And again, to give you a perspective, a decent size hotel, 180 room, 100 room hotel, 40,000 square feet. So it was still a very substantial facility. So I was trying to think of a way that it could be used. Perhaps we could have some type of college out there. Boone, North Carolina is a college town. It already has about 20,000 students. Appalachian State University. I thought perhaps something like a naturopathic college or a chiropractic college. The founder of the Art of Living, Sri Sri, was interested in bringing some of that more so to India, but nothing seemed to happen over the years. I even visited several other large spiritual organizations that were active. You know, these teachers that are living this level of life, they're all uniquely different. They have different ways that they share their knowledge, but essentially they're all obviously talking about the same thing. And I have a funny story about what happened 2 years back when Sri Sri Ravi Shankar met Ammaji. And I'd seen her several times in Colorado, and I did actually go out to visit her to see perhaps if her organization was interested in utilizing this facility. She was already committed elsewhere. There was a story that they crossed paths, the founder of the Art of Living, Sri Sri and Ammaji, crossed paths in an airport. The story is that they passed and they saw each other, came together and hugged, said hello to each other, and then went on to their planes. Several days later, I was actually traveling with the founder of the Art of Living in his car with him on the way to our Canadian center in Montreal. Smaller facility than we have here, but it was one of the first in North America. Sri Sri is sitting in the car, traveling in front of me, and he turns and he's thinking, he says, "Oh my goodness," surprised. He said that in the last 3 days, I've hugged 28,000 people. I think that's the number he said. And he normally doesn't do that. But this was right after, a few days after he had met Ammaji in the airport, and they hugged. Really surprising. And apparently what happened, life is a mystery, quality that this great teacher Ammaji had somehow was imbibed in the founder of the Art of Living in Sri Sri. He took up hugging. He had no choice. Me and my friend were sitting in the back, amazed by hearing this. I took out my calculator and I started trying to figure out how long he had to spend with each person in order to hug that many people. A couple of days of events that he was doing. Just took it up all of a sudden, spontaneously. And then gradually it faded out. But the point of that, perhaps of this story, is that gives you maybe a deeper peek into the idea that the same life that lives within us lives in everyone, and that there really absolutely is a state of oneness where we feel and know in the most intimate part of our being that we are connected in one life. We traveled to India in 2007 for a grand event, the 35th anniversary, called the World Culture Festival celebration. And at this point, Bangalore, 5 years ago, before that, we had the 30th, this was the 35th. And I talked earlier in one of my episodes about how amazing that was to be at that event. And one of the really cute events that happened, I had brought a couple of friends, and I had no intent to sit down, perhaps meet with him, but I had a secret desire for my friends to meet the founder. It's like somebody is your absolutely best friend, close buddy, that's inspired you, that you look up to, father-like figure, really more than that. And you want to introduce them, not for oneself, but because we should have the chance to be in the presence of this kind of consciousness. And so anyway, at that event 5 years earlier, in the middle of a hall where there were thousands, tens of thousands of people. I had this experience where I felt like someone was pulling on my ear. No one was there. I intuited that I was being called. And then I left that hall with my friends in tow. You know, I felt that he was in this next building. If you've been there, you'll know what I'm talking about, this hall. I went for the door and the crowd parted, thousands of people. The door opened. We walked into that door and he was sitting there grinning at me, pulling on his ear. In this next event, I've been thinking about it the last few hours, rolling it in my mind before I woke in the morning, actually, on how amazing this was. At this time, the facility that we originally used in Bangalore, the location was too small. The 50-acre airport was too small, and they needed another place. And this was done in Delhi, along the Yamuna River, in a huge open area location. And it was intended to, again, celebrate the One World family called Vasudeva Kutumbakam. At that event, it was much bigger than the event. Perhaps 1.5 million people or so came to the first one, 2 million. This one, there were actually about 3.5 million people that came. And those of you that hear of this around the world, you say that's huge. There are actually bigger events that happen. One of them is called the Kumbh Mela, which happens a little bit farther north. But this is all organized by the Art of Living. Representatives were en route from 155 countries for this event. My wife and I decided to go a few weeks earlier. I wanted to see the location. I wanted to see the work in progress in terms of what they were building here for this event. And so we flew into Delhi, and we had kind of one day, went into Bangalore. We were coming back later for the event. I jumped in a taxi and made my way down towards the location. And if you have a chance to look online, do a search under World Culture Festival Art of Living. It's 2017, and see the volume and the number of people that attended at this event. But I wanted to see the stage, actually, because I'd been hearing about this stage. Just imagine a skyscraper, a 50-story skyscraper turned on its side, and this was the bleachers that everybody sat. And then in front of this was this huge stage. I don't know how many acres it was, maybe 10 or 12 acres, the stage where all the dignitaries would sit, and then all of the cultural festival events in front. You'll see it if you go online and you check there. And they had decided that they were going to build this with absolutely no impact on the land, ecology, no impact. And it was a free floating structure, no foundation, no concrete poured, and with elevators to take people up and down because it was so big, this huge structure. And then all of the surrounding open area, giant projection screen. I just wanted to go out and see. Amazing event, and amazing they could build this. Unfortunately, there was some opposition. You know, India, it has its different parties and individuals that have different points of view. You could say that there were people that were creating some troubles for the organization. In fact, they cleaned up the river, the whole river there, and they had this huge project of, it was so polluted that the animals would not even go down into the river. And there'd been an ongoing project the last few months to actually clean that up. So stinking that no animals would go down and even drink the water. And there's this huge process going on where literally thousands and thousands of individuals had created these biological containers that had specific herbs, enzymes in that, kind of the things that you would normally put into a septic system. One of the ways they were going to clean up the river is by pouring these cleansing elements into the septic system in Delhi. And this ultimately cleaned up that river, and the animals came back. But in the meantime, there was quite a stir in the media. In the United States, we're beginning to understand a little bit more now about people are taking positions which are not necessarily based in fact, but based upon my side, your side points of view. So anyway, all of that had continued during this event because it was of such a large stature. And during the major event, there were 37,000 different artists that danced and sang and different performances and from 155 different countries around the world. And before that, we did make our way down to Bangalore for a week or two. My wife wanted to go to their really excellent Ayurvedic clinic. They had a huge hospital. Campus there had just absolutely exploded in the last 5 years, those last 5 years since we went there 5 years earlier. It was really an entire city with thousands of people working there, doing all kinds of really good things around the world. They were doing almost anything you could imagine. There were delivery trucks delivering healthy and organic products and services all throughout Bangalore, and the individual kutir of Shri where we used to sit out with him. That was the old campus. It had multiplied many, many times. And they now had an outdoor venue space that could handle 30 or 40,000 people. And commonly there were numbers like that were coming to the event. So my wife and I went to their Ayurvedic and their hospital clinic there. I wanted to do a few things just to be there, a little private room there next to their main hospital facility, and went through some of those treatments. Very, very reasonable. And the technologies for creating better health are really amazing, amazing. The kinds of things that they were able to do for people who are needing that kind of help were really unbelievable. One individual who had come in with a major stroke and was completely paralyzed through the different types of treatments they did, Ayurvedic natural treatments, herbalism, and other things that they do. There is a full medical staff there as well. He was up and walking around. In my case, I had an early stage cataract. Through some of the eye treatments, I was able to clear that out in that short period of time. Surprising, amazing. My personal opinion is that if I really had anything significantly serious, that's the place that I would go. I'm a physician in the United States in the natural healthcare field called a naturopathic doctor. So I practiced for some years, had clinics and so forth. Now it's really well known all throughout India. Spent some time and then we flew back to Delhi for the World Culture Festival. And it was such an amazing time. Crazy and amazing. Thousands of volunteers that organized this many people, 3.5 million people, to get them transportation, housing, food, safely to and from the venue. There was a group at every one of these hundreds, perhaps thousands of hotels that they had, many hundreds of hotels, to organize the buses and the transportation. An unbelievable process. And all of that went off. Unfortunately, the first day was a crazy disaster. And what happened was on a special holiday that many groups were actually getting married also around in that area of Delhi. So the traffic was completely backed up. And all these thousands of buses were heading towards this venue to try to get people there for the first evening. And then it began to rain. The rain began to come down badly. How can I describe the scene that first day? Imagine you had several hundred boxes of matches. Matchbox, with maybe 50 or 100 matches in the box. And then you opened all those boxes and you turned all those boxes of matches and threw them on the ground. And then it was all happening in a muddy swamp. And each one of those matches was a bus. That's what happened. Thousands and thousands of buses, all parked in every direction imaginable. And everybody came. And then once we got there, we got out of our buses. We didn't realize there were thousands of more buses coming in. We thought we knew where our bus was, and we didn't. So we were actually there just long enough to see an opening ceremony. Then we had to turn around and actually find our way back. How it happened, I still don't know how it was possible. There is a big mind. There is a level of consciousness that connects us all. And the reason I mentioned that earlier experience where in the last event where Sri was pulling on my ear and took me and showed me where he was and drew me in there. To this day, I don't know how we all made our way out of there. And I really suspect and believe that somehow maybe this big life, this consciousness, which was totally immanent, we were there for that one world consciousness and the world world film was somehow directing us all, pulling on us this way and that way. I don't know how it happened. I don't know how we made it back. But all those hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people, that were in this for this first day, walking through the mud in some places The holes, you would step and it would go down to your knees. In the rain, in the mud, found our way through all this chaos back to our bus and back to our rooms. So that was the first day, total chaos. After that, it was really beautiful, unbelievable. There were representatives from virtually every government in the world, tens of thousands of spiritual teachers from every imaginable tradition that had come to enjoy this festival. And so many different groups came, they had their own costumes and their dances, and it was all choreographed. I was involved with a group that was doing something from Bangalore, and I brought my little instrument that I now played in my conch, my Shankar shell that I played there. We had very comfortable chairs and couches to sit in. It was incredible. And they did have a segment for the international, so it wasn't too crazy. In different countries, we're all stationed throughout that. Go online and look at this. An amazing time, the World Culture Festival. And we made it back, of course, alive and well, and there were no people that were hurt. 2 full days and then an evening, meditating, singing together, dancing together, enjoying this incredible time. Thank you for listening to this adventure today. I think it shows that individuals of good heart and goodwill can really accomplish great things, and that we can all come together and contribute our talents and our inspiration. All of this is recorded on my YouTube channel. Thank you for coming today and listening to my personal autobiography and my adventure and supporting this wonderful organization and telling my story about being around a teacher who I consider to be really the first global world teacher. One way you can think of the founder of the Art of Building, he's really kind of successor to the nonviolent activities that were taught by Mahatma Gandhi that influenced this world in the West so heavily. There were more great things to come. So join us again for another episode. This is Dr. James Weldon Yogadhi speaking to you from our community here in Boone, North Carolina, Heavenly Mountain. Namaste, and may that divine life also rise within you, which is the whole purpose of this sharing. Ultimately, only that matters. You remember that little joke I told you at the beginning? Having good guidance really helps. Huge steps of progress can be made in a very short period of time. And I do believe that this state of awareness that I'm talking about, and the stages of this development of this illuminated, enlightened consciousness, are really the next natural state of human evolution. Not as far away as we might suspect. It's our very nature. So coming into contact with that allows us to become beings filled with goodness, and to give that and share that with others is one of the purposes of our life. So I encourage you to look a little deeper into your own life and be grateful. The inner being is the one thing that has always been there. When you were a baby, when you were a child, it's the same inner awareness in the deep level of your existence, which perceived out through those eyes, that has lived all of this life. Everything has changed. Every cell in the body has changed so many times. But that inner reality needs to be explored and understood and experienced to live the full potential of life. Have everything you want in the world, but grow that as well. And you will find that your life is so much more fulfilled. Thanks for joining us in our YouTube channel, books, podcast episodes on living the enlightened life, and autobiography with your host, Dr. James Yogadhi Weldon.